Wow. So yesterday, my husband was coming home early, and that was me catching up of 24 hours being on a timeout. And so I did my Facebook Live yesterday, and then I felt the particles accelerate yesterday in the afternoon, around 12, 1 o'clock or so. And I talked to my husband. He was going to come home early or come home around 5 and take today off. He's fishing. And so I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I don't really have anything to make for dinner. I mean, I do, but I don't feel like making dinner. So we order pizza. But before that, I took a major nap, and I actually was dead to the world. I was like in some kind of weird ass dream. I mean, being so zonked out, knocked out in the afternoon, having to take a nap. Yeah, it's every day now that I am blowing my nose. It is this morning, literally this morning, at night, blowing my nose this morning. I mean, it is vastly different than when it was last year or the year before. I don't remember having to wake up almost every morning and blowing my nose to the extent that I'm blowing my nose. Releasing demons wasn't that bad. It was not. But I will tell you, I definitely know how aggressive it is out there. And that's why you're seeing so many died suddenlies, and why you're seeing turbo cancers. Because the growth is astronomical. The growth is astronomical, to the point of where when I'm literally having to blow my nose the way I'm blowing my nose and sneezing just to make sure for the good measure, right? Yeah. And so what am I blowing out? I'm blowing out the weaker cells. I'm blowing out the juvenile weaker cells that are not needed. When you think about it, I give birth to myself every single day. Why do I do that? Why do I give birth to myself? Because I'm releasing the demons that would potentially take me over. It's like the adult saving itself from the out of control children. See, you don't know, humans, that you've been under experimentation for so many years. I couldn't even tell you when all the experimentation happened. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you when it started. We could say 6,000 years ago. We can go all the way back to Imhotep when he first started doing the physician stuff, the architecture, the mathematics, everything that he's known for. But did he just have something that was a workaround? What's a workaround? Well, in computer terms, it is like a temporary fix until they fix the root problem. So they find a workaround. Well, when the slaves were getting injured on the job, or they were getting growths, they were getting tumors, they were getting things that it would take them away from their job, what did the chancellor, the vizier, whatever you want to call it, the chancellor of Egypt at the time, under Dozier, and he was a commoner too, Imhotep, he was around 2600 BC. Well, what did he do to fix things temporarily for the slaves so they can go back to work? Well, he did the surgeries. He did the cures. He did all the healing remedies. He was the first physician, the first known physician. That's why the Rosicrucian's all about the Egyptian everything. Because that was part of all of the medical system, the holistic system, the surgical system. That was the beginning of developing, like you would say, a Babylonian society full of diversity. Because every single time you use a remedy, you're using a surgery, you're doing something, you're developing offspring, or little demons, right? And then they could turn into cancer, which then they scoop out. And then now biotech uses those cancer cells for so many different things. Or they remedy them away, but then develop more offspring, or they turn into children who then turn into a type of adult. That's the diversity. That's where diversity comes from. Diversity comes from trauma. It comes from heterogeneous cells literally coming together and figuratively coming together, developing offspring. And then those cells get programmed. Okay? And so we have been taught for hundreds of years. I don't want to say thousands, because I can't go back that far. But we've been taught for hundreds of years to attack the juvenile cells, to remedy them away, render the body defenseless against releasing the juvenile cells. So either you keep them inside and it becomes a cancer, so you can have peace, so you can go back to your job, or you leave them inside and it becomes a child, and the child then goes through a 9-month gestation. And then you bear a copy of yourself that is then like that movie Vivarium, which is more of an extreme side of what parenting is like nowadays. Taking care of a child that really isn't there. I mean, it's theirs, but it's not. Because it's not really your child. It's the system's child. It's the government's child that you are allowed to take care of. Assuming that you can prove that you can take care of a child based upon how the government wants you to take care of that child. Even when you homeschool that child, you're still held accountable to the government. Okay? So then we're taught to either have children, attack children, commodify children, traffic children. You're seeing that all over the reels. And then now with all the V's, the VACCINES's, right? Then you're told at least once a year during cold and flu season that, let me just see something here real quick. That you need to get little babies to go and protect you. All right, let me. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, and so that's kind of a crazy thing. That's kind of a crazy thing that you're told your whole life to attack children, either get abortions, bear children, or attack them with oncology and stop the body from releasing them, or you're told to gain more children through the VACCINES's as a protection. You're told to have children now have to protect you. What? Because that's what all the different antibodies, they are children. They are literally children. Okay? And so we are a force majeure. Why are we a force majeure? Because the system has told you that symptoms are bad. You're not supposed to feel them. You're supposed to scoop them out or surgically take them out, or you're supposed to stop the body from releasing. You're supposed to stop the body from energetic responses by taking a pill, a powder, supplement, a detox, oncology. And so now we're making it okay to feel symptoms, to release the children that you have been attacking your whole life. Now the J world has told you it's okay to release the children, release the demons, release the children, and save yourself. When you see one adult with so many children around them, that adult is run ragged. When you see a mother with 19 children, not only is that mother being run ragged, but she doesn't have what it takes to take care of all those kids. Then some of these kids turn into vile human beings because they were born from an anomalous situation. They weren't born from a relatively whole person because they had to share all of those different hormonal characteristics with their sisters and their brothers. And when you have 19 kids, you know one of them is going to go a little bit off the rocker because they didn't get the full, complete package. And not any of these kids get the full, complete package because mama's coming in at a deficit. Well, imagine coming in at a deficit and then having kids at the same time. Now you're just splitting, you're fractionalizing that fraction. You're splitting, you're like cutting up all the pieces that were already cut up to begin with. You're coming in at even more of a deficit. So now the whole J world is a force majeure. We're saying now we want to become whole again. We're not demonizing symptoms. You need to eat all food in the food supply. And you've been taught to attack children with herbs, with extracts, with surgeries, with remedies, with detoxes. And then you're told to also have children. There's so much confusion out there right now. No wonder the system is like, okay, we need to go to do a great reset, because we are so misaligned with our messages. And that's why there's so much activism, because you've been told two stories. You had the system speak out of both sides of its mouth, and you don't know which one is true, because the system does play both sides. That's why you can't play the game of I'm going to do the opposite of what the government's saying or the doctors or anything else, because they play both sides of the fence. Only you don't know it until you're actually understanding what the other argument is. And so the J world is a force majeure, because now we have interrupted the contract of DEATH, of death, that politics, religion, all religions, all spirituality and science dogmas have contracted with everyone that follows them. Anyone that takes on a religion, worshiping someone or demonizing someone, is in a contract of death with the system, with their friends and family, with themselves. Because you already see how they speak about themselves. I'm going over there to heaven or hell or whatever. So religions and spirituality, I'm going to go over there to Pleiades and I'm going to rise above and be ascend or descend or whatever. They're already in a contract of death when you're spiritual. And politics is like, yeah, here, let me sell you death on the most beautiful platter of a beautiful person, a charismatic person, or someone that represents your culture, which was downtrodden for so many years. So politics and religion reinforces the contracts of death. And then the science dogmas reinforces that even more so because of all the oncology, all the surgeries, speaking out of both sides of the mouth. And so we're a force majeure. We're now we're turning the system upside down and saying, you know what, you're bullshit. You're supposed to release the demons, become a relatively whole person. When you're a relatively whole person and you're able to release most of your trauma, then maybe you might be a candidate to be a parent, like literally bear a child, because that child has way more than what it would have if you hadn't became whole again, mom and dad. But now we have moms and dads who have so much trauma to their body, mind, and spirit, hadn't really become whole again because their own parents never became whole again, and they're having kids on top of that. And what are we producing in our society? Well, go look at everybody. Look at all the diversity. And then you look at how many kids who are adults that even law enforcement has to go and babysit. That's the grim and sad state of affairs that we're in. And so, remember Judy Mikovits? And I understand her intention. I understand a lot, because, cancer. What is cancer, right? Oh, Lordy. So when you study cancer cells, they are juvenile cells. They are immortal germline cells. That's the start of a human. That's the start of an entity. And that is also what could be potentially an enemy to a person if they don't understand how to control that juvenile cell. Or it could be a gift. It's an assimilation. And so just so you know, I've taken on so many different cancer cells out there. Things that are out of control that could turn into cancer if I had a closed system. Oh, believe me, when the particles accelerate to such an extent, I'm around people, and I don't care where they come from. They could have no cancer, they could have cancer. It doesn't matter. When I'm taking on other people's proteins, particles, and I'm in a very highly accelerated environment, yeah, if I had a closed system where I couldn't release the weak children out of my body and only keep the strongest ones, I would have a cancer. I already know this because sometimes I have these itchy hives, and then they come around and they leave. I mean, I have gotten bigger, but now I have the weight that is distributed evenly. But if I hadn't assimilated to all the different cancer cells I've been exposed to out there, then you would see the body try to reject and resist, and me helping it with all the different remedies and surgeries. And so then those little cancer cells, those little children that are still stuck in the body that's not allowed to release because it's been attacked and then the body's been shut down from really releasing, they would go find a place to go and metastasize. And that's what people are dealing with right now. They have been so resistant to the assimilation process of symptoms that they've attacked their body with remedies, with over-the-counter prescription drugs, cannabis, everything else, and they don't allow their body to release. And guess what these cancers do? They metastasize in the body. And then they have to go to the medical system to get them surgically taken out or have some kind of radiation or chemotherapy done to them because they've resisted the evolution, resisted assimilating to change and evolution. And so what did Judy Mikovits find? She found immortal germline cells. She was like, oh my, and so yeah, she could prove, absolutely. She has proven that they have put immortal germline cells as used as a way to cause the body to go into protection, to give you that exposure, to then potentially produce antibodies to protect your body. But in some people who are really radically closed up and have so much, I don't know, they have so much trauma inside their body that exposure to that helper, that therapy, that public health therapy then turned into something that was turbo. But then you'd have to then prove correlation equals causation. Well, some have and some haven't because it was too far in between when they received the therapy and when they were diagnosed that they couldn't make that correlation. But when you get diagnosed right after you get a therapy, then they could probably see the correlation. But if people didn't get any kind of cancer or diagnosis soon after they got that specific therapy, if they didn't get a diagnosis, then their body released those demons. And then down the road, they were exposed to something else that triggered a specific condition that could potentially be a turbo cancer. That could have been on the inserts as well. But time is the factor that the system, the legal system, uses as a way to measure if that was the actual cause or if that was just one of many factors that potentially caused a diagnosis even 2 years later. That's the law. That's where people are getting screwed left and right because they don't understand the law. That's why there's slush funds, because they know some people are going to not be able to release those demons, release those juvenile cells, cancer cells, immortal germline cells. And they're going to have a case if they can prove correlation equals causation. And so cancer equals cancel. Your children will cancel you out. Just watch Vivarium. Children cancel their parents out all the time. It doesn't have to happen that way, but that's what we've been taught. When you have a kid, that kid is going to take the place of you. That is the percept. That is everything that we've been taught. And so not only we're taught to have children and to have big families to replace you and to contribute something to the world, but we're also taught to attack juvenile cells with herbs, with extracts, with detoxes, pills and powders and supplements, oncology, cannabis, herbal remedies, even abortion. We're taught to attack children through even abortion. So that's why it's a little bit disingenuous of the right-wing people to be against abortion when they're using oncology against their juvenile cells. Those juvenile cells are the micro level of an actual kid at the macro level. What's the difference? Because of how many cells? It's okay to attack your juvenile cells with herbs and extracts and detoxes and oncology. Because you know people who are right-wing who've had cancer got oncology, but yet they're against abortion. But they're the same thing, just a matter of how many cells make up something that makes you take on an activist stance, take on a political ideology. And so when we have been told to attack something that is juvenile and elementary and out of control is incorrigible, it is very confusing to then have somebody promote something like a vaccine because you've been taught forever to attack something such as what is in the V's and to be intolerant of symptoms. and then to turn around and say that everything is good. It's okay to have symptoms according to people that are promoting the V's. You're supposed to have an immunological response. You're supposed to feel something. The response that you get is less than what it would have been down the road. But again, how do you know? You can't guarantee that. When you've been told your whole fucking life to attack symptoms and you're taking Triaminic, Sudafed, Actifed, you're taking NyQuil, Dayquil, Mucinex, you're taking elderberry syrup your whole freaking life against the juvenile cells in your body. You're not really told to know how to blow your nose and release the demons. Telling someone now go get a V to promote an immunological response to develop children, juvenile cells. You really think people are going to buy that shit? No. That's why you get the pushback. That's why there's an anti-V campaign. I mean, I get it. I understand it, but it's psychological operations. What's going on? It's major psychological operations. It's subjects in an experiment being triggered left and right, running around with their heads cut off because they don't know what the hell's going on. They have no idea. They've been told everything, and then now you're being told something different. And so then, when you understand this, when a scientist understands this, like Bill Gates, because he is a scientist, even though he's not like a degreed scientist, but he started Microsoft and he understands viruses, vital information resource under siege. He understands programming, computer programming, script. He understands all that. He's a little fucking genius. You can't say that he's dumb. He is not. He's smart as fucking. He's smart as hell. Then you have Dr. Fauci. He's an actual degreed scientist who understands proteins, understands how to develop entities by just docking proteins together to specific hosts and seeing the phenotypical characteristics it changes. And he understands protection. He understands how compromised people are. And then they're told that, now this is where I have how do you know when a pandemic, how do you know when that's going to happen? Because it takes a catalyst. I'm not saying the V is a catalyst. But what I am saying is that the climate change. So they know that when the climate changes, but how do you know? How can you even say? I mean, people say that climate's going to change, but what? It's been changing. It has been changing. But what was that extra thing that caused the pandemic in 2019? For them to use the patents that were already developed because they knew everyone had COVID, right? Everyone had everything that was in their body. How did they know the algorithm to have that specific patent for that specific V? Well, this is where you have a question. This is where you're like, how much did Bill Gates know? How much did Dr. Fauci know? I have no idea. You hear about depopulation, you hear about the experiments done in India and different places, Africa. Okay. I don't know what people knew and when they knew it. I really don't. But I don't imagine they are willing to just throw away their whole career so the system can go and depopulate everyone and they're used as a tool and potentially be put in danger because of people who have been radicalized against them. I don't think they would agree to that. I don't think that they would think that they could say what they say in the actual A plus B equals C context that right now the radicalists are promoting, like saying, like, oh yeah, Bill Gates knew, he's trying to depopulate us, and Dr. Fauci knew, look at the... I mean, would I agree to that? Would any human out there? But I don't know. I mean, hey, there's secret societies, and they're like, hey, we gave you a good life, you have, a great company, Microsoft, and you're going to change the world with all that, and you have a big house and a nice car. But even then, all this sex, all the drugs, the rock and roll, and all the extravagant wealth, is that enough to be then the scapegoat in somebody else's political game? I wouldn't do it, but damn, I don't know how the world works out there. I don't know. I mean, I know how the world works, but I'm not in Bill Gates' position. I'm not in Dr. Fauci's position. I don't know what they knew and when they knew it. And I don't know. Everything now is speculative. So then you're like, shit. What is pandemic? It's particle acceleration. That's cytokine storms. When you're bringing in something so energetically aggressive, people have responses. Okay, immunological responses. But then people may have immunological responses, but that wouldn't warrant then the rest of the population to be coming down with whatever issue that same person that had a V had, right? So then it's the environment that has to change to wake up other people's issues, and those that already had the V2 will have another immunological response, and then now you can't tell where the chicken and the egg came from. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? You will never know, because when the climate changes, and I've been feeling it, and I'm hardly around anyone, but when I do go around people, it's not like, oh, because then I have an immunological. No, I feel the heartbeat. You're like, oh, the heartbeats could be from some disease in your body waking up. Yeah, potentially, but what's the catalyst? What would trigger it to wake up? It takes energy, triggers energy. People hold diseases in all the time. That's what HIV positive is. You could be HIV positive but not have AIDS. So you can hold all the different proteins. People do. They probably are. I mean, when you're HIV positive, it means that you have a lot more of the particles than a person who is not HIV positive, like HIV negative. But being HIV negative says you don't have as many particles. Being HIV positive says you have a lot of particles. And then having the AIDS virus says, man, you have shit that's going to take over. So there's 3 positions you can be in. But you have to get tested in order to know that. If you don't get tested, then you're not going to know shit, right? You'll just know it when it happens, when you actually feel it, and then you get tested. So we have people could be all having some kind of particles of either COVID-19, whatever. And some maybe test positive. Doesn't mean they're actually having the actual virus, but they can be test positive. And people get scared. Oh, you're testing positive. And now you're communicable. But then when you have another particle acceleration and you then cause those things to multiply, then the virus. It's the multiplication of the particles that you already that were held within you is what causes then the people's immunological responses. And that's when you see people coughing, sneezing, blowing their nose, having some kind of inflammation. And then they go and get tested, like you saw the testing centers. People are taking their fluids. They're getting it tested. Those fluids are purified. Proteins are separated. Then they're used as protection. Now you don't even know. See, that's what science is. And so Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci, it's not really their fault. They've been doing this shit for years. We didn't have these kind of the last major pandemic was 1918. That was worldwide. World War I. We've had little skirmishes like the AIDS virus in 1985, okay. We had, influenza every cold and flu season, but there wasn't like what it's been, okay. We had, what was that, the H1N1, SARS virus. I even went to China during that time. But I didn't get sick like I have been. Shit. Lately, it's been crazy. Ever since 2019, it's been everything that I've experienced just maybe once a year, if that. I haven't had the hives ever, really. But I have been experiencing every single freaking week. It's like I've been expecting every afternoon to feel the heartbeats. And it's going to be like 87 degrees today. It is like over 120 in Death Valley, 130 in Death Valley. It's excessive heat warnings in California, excessive heat warnings in Las Vegas, excessive heat warnings everywhere. When you have excessive heat warnings, that's turbo cancers. You are going to see turbo cancers. And so, yeah, all the anti-V people who are now realizing, or maybe not, who might be realizing that the V's really aren't the issue. It's the fact that they never responded to immunological responses correctly so they can survive. You've always responded to immunological responses with a prescription drug, with taking away food. And death is sometimes the outcome. Death is always the outcome when you don't take care of your body. It's not that it was meant to happen. It's only meant to happen when you intended to happen. And people are like, I didn't intend it to happen. Yeah, you fucking did, because you had those painkillers. You had the surgeries. Every single death is an intention. But people want to call, the time in between life and death, between they're born and when they die, life. Yeah, you're on a death trajectory. Everything you do around symptoms is what caused you to die to begin with. And so, yeah, Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci was used as a scapegoat. Remember, every war, there's always a scapegoat. The people never take responsibility for their part in it. They allowed somebody else to radicalize them. And you saw the anti-V campaigns way in the beginning. They had these lawyers, and people were like, yeah, you had these parents that were exploiting their kids. But they have to understand that people are suffering. They have to blame somebody. And then someone used that. And so then Vivarium, and I saw that actually when it was on my streaming services. It's now on Netflix. You need to watch Vivarium. Because the opening scene of the first credits is showing a nest with like 3 babies. And the mother goes off and leaves to go get worms. And the strongest baby is pushing out the weakest kids in that nest. So you think of families, the strongest kid and the weakest kid. And you can see, relative to, I guess, your perception and the culture, who the strongest kid and the weakest kid. But Vivarium was showing you that the 1950s, that whole suburban ticky-tacky houses, it was all experimentation. It was all an observation to study your behaviors, your kids' behaviors, your behaviors as a parent, the diseases that you guys embrace or resist, the occupations you go into, the criminal activity, your hopes, your dreams, your habits, your sexual practices. So Vivarium was a dystopian 1950s. All families are under experimentation and observation. So you having a kid, yeah, you're basically a government-sanctioned babysitter for a child of the state, because that's not your kid. Yeah, maybe from your loins, but that kid belongs to the state. So all families are under experimentation and observation. Parents are trapped into taking care of demon offspring. You saw how the child took on the characteristics and the voice of the parents during that movie. The movie opens up with a nest, and the strongest baby kicked out the weakest babies out of the nest. And so we're in that right now. Climate change is the strongest baby kicking out the weakest one. So when people die, or they are steadily attacking their evolution with painkillers, food mitigation, demonization, finding an enemy, looking for a hero, those are the weakest children that are going to be pushed out of the nest at some point. And that's all over your Facebook. Just watch your Facebook. People who are aging out, the weakest child in the world of strong babies. And then the environment. All the different global geothermal positioning systems, global positioning systems, causing different fluctuations here and there. Some places get it more than others. I don't know. Well, they're accelerating that intention. They're accelerating that intention. And so we're in that right now. Climate change is the strongest baby kicking out the weakest babies. And so died suddenly means that you are not the strongest baby. Died suddenly means that you bore a child that couldn't handle the environment. So you're going to find out too late, because you're not going to do anything different, mom and dad, because you don't want to take on the substance. You don't want your kid taking on substance. You already scared your kid away from food. They're already breaking bones. When kids are breaking bones, people are breaking bones. I'm watching this. I'm watching people on Facebook, and they're saying, oh my God, I'm breaking a bone. I just slipped and fell and I broke a bone. How does that happen? I slipped and fell the other day. I didn't break any bones. And I slipped really hard. Okay, because I had pine sauce on the floor and I slipped with my shoes, but I didn't break any ankles, I didn't break any legs, I didn't break nothing. But people are just walking and they fall and they're breaking bones. And then they have friends and family who are like, oh my God, my friend is breaking a bone over here. And they're like in Mississippi. They're in Las Vegas. They're in different places. In Washington. They're in California. And so, yeah, so you're seeing that people are breaking bones right now. And climate change is kicking out the weakest babies. And so, yeah. And the weakest people are the ones that are burying the children, because that's taking now substance away from them. When you're having a kid right now in this environment, you have now taken away major percentages of your survival. And now that kid is a fraction of its potential, and you think they're going to be able to handle this climate change? And how much food are you going to give that kid? And how much of the symptoms are they be able to handle before you, mom and grandma, attack the kid's symptoms and giving them elderberry syrup and giving them all the different detoxes and taking food away from them? And so even people now burying babies, you hope that they have enough in them for that baby to survive climate change and the growing up process. But as you know, we are in a major, major energy shift. And what we used to do before, we could have gotten away with and still been able to survive. It's not going to happen. We have kids dying suddenly. We have parents dying suddenly. We have grown-ups, grandparents dying suddenly. But people are okay with that. It's okay if grandma dies. But man, it's kind of crazy that mom dies. And it's even crazier that a baby or a toddler or a teenager dies. Well, I don't know when death should ever be acceptable, but when you accept death for grandma, you will have to accept death for a child. That's what people are facing. When grandma's okay with passing away, well, then it's going to be okay for that child or the grandchild to pass away, because that's what you are advocating, especially in this highly accelerated environment. So then grandma has to question her own belief system around her own mortality. If she wants to save her fucking family and her grandkids, she's got to save herself. But do you see these grandmas and these mamas ever making any changes? Absolutely fucking not. They're on there dropping scripture. They're on there saying, oh, look how beautiful I am. Look how beautiful I am. Oh, and upset at their ex. Always demonizing their ex and how they're a survivor of some ex that walked away. Oh, they're not changing shit. They're just getting more social capital because they're trying to ride on whatever life is left. Well, I get it. But I want you to see, those of you that have some kind of evolutionary capacity within you, watch your friends and family pretend nothing is wrong. Because I'll tell you, when you finally want to save yourself, you're not going to be parading your all your images on Facebook. You're not going to be like, oh, look, I'm going here. You'll be going like, shit, I feel it. Shit, I'm facing my demons. Let me tell you, in this environment, anyone that's not sick, really sick, I mean, my husband isn't really, see, men, that's just creepy. I asked my husband, how do you feel every day? And he's like, I'm fucked. I feel like, he's just like shit, but he feels in his body, but it doesn't stop him. He's fucking strong. My husband, when he does feel sick, when he had felt sick, he was down for a week. And that was probably, oh God, that was a couple months ago. But he's really strong. He's not your usual type. But with women, if you're not getting sick, women, and you're evolutionary, you're supposed to get sick because you're supposed to have a kid, right? You're the one that bears the child. You're the one that's used to getting PMS every fucking month, right? If you're not getting sick, what the hell is going on in your world? What are you stopping? What have you done to stop your body from releasing? And if you're not getting sick and facing your sickness, women, what chance do your freaking grandkids have? What chance? Now you're just throwing the dice. And so, yeah, Facebook is a mirror. You either see what you want to see, or you see the reality, or reality is perception. But every reflection out there is credible. Every reflection is the truth. Every truth is the truth. So where do you want to end up ultimately, grandma, grandpa? Some people say, I don't care. I'll end up dead. I don't care. You're supposed to die someday. Okay. You really want that for your kid too? You want that for your grandkid? You're supposed to die someday? You really think your kid's going to grow up strong in this world when you already said that you're supposed to die someday? That you're not going to do any kind of changes? You're not going to evolve? You're not going to change? What kind of future does your grandchild have, Grandma? So where do you want to end up ultimately, Grandma, Grandpa, Mother, Father? Where do you want to... It's not about love, because love is destructive. Love is taking someone to the hospital and getting surgery and trauma to them. Love is taking away their pain. Love is taking away food because you think it's poison. That's what love is, Mom, Dad, in this society. Love is taking someone to oncology, getting more of the body, mind, and spirit taken away systematically. That's what love is. So no, love is not the fucking answer. That's not where you end up ultimately. Love is destructive. So where do you want to end up ultimately, Mom and Dad, Grandma, Grandpa? You want to end up in the morgue someday? Because that's where you're heading to, Grandma, Grandpa. But that's okay, right? That's okay. If you die, Grandma, that's okay. So that means that your kids are going to die sooner in this environment because this environment has accelerated. You had the luxury, Grandma, Grandpa, Mom, and Dad, to live in a slower frequency environment, but it was heating up. And then 2019, the climate change sped up everything. Sped up every single one of your intentions. So when you thought you had 80 years, now you only have 50 or 40 or 30 or even less than that relative to your predisposed issues. So that is the spell that you are casting onto your children and your grandchildren, Grandma, when you think that you're supposed to die someday. That nothing should ever fucking change in your world. That you're going to be a traditionalist until the day you pass away. And then what future again does your children have? We don't need 300 million people in America. They already have the rest of the world. If all America passed away, the system would still be able to go, to be able to function. America is not what the world needs now. Now you have to want to be needed for yourself and your family. And so if everyone passed away in America, the world would be okay with that. Well, why would you be okay with that? But even in the UK, even in Australia. But are they going to totally disseminate or destroy the first world? No. But taking away 300 million people would help with the whole depopulation agenda and saving humanity from all-out destruction because of consumerism. So how much do you respect yourself, Mom, Dad, Grandma? And so where do you want to end up ultimately? Where do you want to end up, or do you want to end up in the morgue someday? Or do you see so much more for yourself? If you see so much more for yourself, if you don't want to end up in the morgue someday and have your children end up in the morgue someday and your grandchildren, your precious grandchildren, that you see these grandmas all over Facebook saying, look at my son, look at my daughter, look at my child, my grandchild, look how proud I am of that. What are you doing, Grandma, to save yourself so you can save your fucking family? What the hell are you doing? Or are you still going to go and participate in the medical system, in the holistic system, and take away your kids' evolutionary potential systematically, but even faster in this environment? Maybe it's time to re-examine your beliefs. Maybe it's time. Instead of resisting me and calling me a caster of spells and saying that I'm trauma victim and all this other bullshit that these people who don't want someone questioning their motives around having a child and parading their child on their Facebook for social capital. I'm not doing it to make you feel bad. I'm doing it to wake your ass up so you realize the kind of shit that you're in. What kind of future do you have your kids in when they're skinny, when they're hardly eating anything? You wake up one day and they don't wake up. Is that what you want? I mean, take away all of their pain and all their symptoms. It's not going to help them. But you see people do that because they don't want to deal with being a parent. The government's going to allow you to take away every single symptom until sudden infant death, sudden death. That's why sudden deaths happen, because the system allowed you to take away your child's life and your life systematically through the medical system, energy healing, allopathic, holistic world, and then they turn that into love. They say that's what love means. That's what love is. Take away somebody's pain, take away their evolution, take away everything until there's nothing left. Until all you have left is a eulogy. That's why I'm so concerned for everyone out there, because I feel it out there. I don't have a kid. I don't have anything except for myself and my husband, who we're responsible for ourselves. But if I feel it, I know these kids out there feel it. I know these parents feel it, but they're trying to run away from it, trying to pretend everything's great. Don't want to ever be fucking sick and release the demons. So maybe it's time to re-examine your beliefs. There is no guarantee for tomorrow regardless, right? So what you do today will determine your tomorrow. Right? The intention is in the words. The outcome is what you speak of every single day. I don't care how many times people tell you their version of life. It doesn't mean their version of life is actually what life is. They just told you their version of life. Do you even know what life is, mom, dad, grandma, who claim that you want to have a long life and you want strength for your family and you think you're God's child? Okay. So you're willing to roll the dice every single day? That's what you're doing in this environment. You're rolling the dice every single day. But hey, it's all about you social capital, all of your wants and your needs. Nothing about your kid. Nope. Your kid's just like, your mouthpiece, your trophy. My husband said, no, I'm not going to say what he said. I'm not going to say it. And so, do you know what life is? Most people don't. That's why they end up in the morgue an hour later, predominantly passing away from natural causes or extremely bad decisions. Very rarely does a person who make wise choices die from freak accidents. And so, and then on the other side of it, as I am adding more pain to your life, right? Because my truth is painful to many people. They don't like me for my truth because they love their kids. They love their grandkids. They don't want someone showing them that they've been superficial about their grandkids and their kids because they don't understand what it means to take care of a fucking child. Okay? And so now I say, I wish I could take away all your pain, but then you would end up dead. So now you know why I don't wish to take away people's pain. I'm not trying to kill them. And I'm not in the same physical room. I'm not the one causing their pain. Past and present trauma memories in the body is causing their pain. Pain is released. Food is the answer. But you see how many people, again, are on their little fucking diets. They're afraid of milk, meat, cheese, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. And they're eating antibiotics left and right like it's fucking water. Food is the answer. I don't want to take away anyone's pain. It's not for me to do. But that's the role of the mother and the father, right? Destroy the person with love and take away all their pain and they end up in the morgue someday. That's exactly what you've been taught, mom and dad and grandma, is destroy people with love and take away their pain and then they end up in the hospital, end up in the morgue or suffering or becoming a criminal because they don't know how to deal with facing the demons. And it's easier to take something than it is to earn something because it's painful to earn something because it requires you have a capacity to deal with suffering of studying, the suffering of restraint, the suffering of having to take a back seat, having your social life take a back seat. So when people become criminals, because it's easier to become a criminal, it's easier to steal that food than to earn it. It's easier to steal that catalytic converter than go and earn it. Earn the money you would make in a decent way. That's when people become criminals because they don't have the capacity to deal with suffering of earning something. Because we have entitled kids that get everything from their parents. Parents deny them nothing. These kids become entitled. They don't get it as fast as they used to from their grandma and their grandpa, so they go and steal it. Or they become predatory. And they go and take somebody's virginity. That's what goes on when we have entitled children that never learned how to deal with stress and suffering. They don't have the capacity for it because they've been given everything their whole life. And you wonder why these kids don't have what it takes to deal with sickness and they die suddenly? Yeah, nobody has trained them to deal with the stress of suffering. Of blowing their nose, eating the food, resting, sleeping, not always out there trying to save the fucking world because they can't even save themselves. Mama hasn't even saved herself. She's suffering under addiction and whatever else. Yeah, watch these Netflix movies and you're seeing how the kid is trying to do right and the mother is just completely under the influence. The kid has to take care of the mother. That's what happens a lot. These kids are taking care of their mothers. Is that really what a kid should be doing, is taking care of their mother? Well, that kid might actually survive. Maybe. But that's what happens. So sometimes the mothers deteriorate faster before that kid even matures. So that's what Vivarium was about, is showing you that was the experiment, that was the intention, and now it's time to flip that fucking script. That's why the J world is a force majeure. We are breaking that death contract that you have with your family, your friends, and society. And so when you understand the J world and you have kids, you won't be promoting any remedies or surgeries or even diagnosing your children on Facebook. People won't know what you're doing, and that is the best thing. And so someone in the J world, and she comes through occasionally, I'm not saying who she is. She has kids and all that stuff. She didn't say anything about her kids. She says nothing on her Facebook about her kids. You don't hear anything about her kid. And I've talked to her. I've actually FaceTimed with her a couple years ago. But she keeps that shit on. She keeps that shit silent. And I'm like, you know what? When you don't talk about your kid, then no one can recommend. If you don't talk about your kid in a diagnosable way, like your kid's suffering, then no one's going to recommend anything because you're not putting your kid in that position. You're not putting yourself in that position. And so when you understand the J world and you have children, you won't be promoting any remedies or surgeries or even diagnosing your children on Facebook at all. People won't know what you're doing, and that is the best thing. Because promoting the holistic and the allopathic world only promotes death and destruction and intolerance to evolution. Now you see what these holistic people do. They are promoting death and destruction and intolerance, but they would never say it. They would never characterize what they do. They're trying to save people because that's what their industry told them. That's how you promote these products, is you're saving people from suffering. Yeah, that's called rest in fucking peace. When you're silent, you're taking care of yourself. And it's no one's business how you deal with your children. Those who understand the J world, if you have to tell everyone your business about your child's diagnosable conditions and issues, then make sure you phrase it correctly so you're not promoting getting treated all the time. Believe me, if you really understood the J world, you would not be putting your children out there on display. But people do all the time. They have their kids out there because their kids are their social fucking capital. Their kids are who they are. The parents don't even know who the fuck they are because their kids are now taking the place. And that's already built in. And so if the parents already have deemed themselves not really an entity on their own and viable, then their children will be their replacement. And then eventually that parent's going to go away. But then what is the future for that kid? It's going to be the same thing, but faster. But it seems there are many, many parents who don't know what they're doing. And so they have to let everyone know they must bring in a professional to take away their children's evolution. Right? You see these parents, oh yeah, if you're sick, don't come over here. Shut up. I took my kid to a holistic professional. I recommend this holistic professional. This is what he did for me for COVID-19. No. So you're saying that basically you don't have what it takes to have a child. You're already giving your children up to the system. And then you're anti-government. You're a Republican. You don't want government in your world. You want to be on your own. You want less government in your world, but yet you want to bring your kids to the government. Yeah, I see where that goes. Okay. Maybe those in the J world don't even have to say anything about their children's diagnosable conditions because what business is it of Facebook, right? What's your intention exploiting your child's illnesses? And the activism world is all about exploiting their children's illnesses for social capital. So when less people talk about using remedies and surgeries, maybe more people are taking care of themselves because they know those who are all about exploiting illnesses will try to stop those who are trying to evolve. And so, yeah, you talk about the J world and people's diagnosable conditions. You see all these people with CPS. Oh, yeah, look, they're doing the J world. We're going to call CPS on that person. Make sure they're not using J juice. We're done with the J juice. Now it's feeding the fucking kid. Now it's giving them gluten. Now it's giving them sugar. Now it's giving them some salt. Now it's giving them some milk and meat and cheese and eggs and fruits and vegetables appropriately during their little stages of whatever food gets in their body. Maybe we should call CPS on those who are taking food away from their child. Say that all food is poison. All these vegan and vegetarians that are withholding food from their kids or animals and all that stuff, maybe we should call CPS on you. I'm not going to do that. But that's essentially what goes on out there. So don't talk about your fucking kid on Facebook about anything. Because you're putting yourself out there and you're showing just how deficient you are as a parent that you have to bring in the state to take care of your fucking kid. If your kid doesn't survive, then that's on you and it's on the state. If your kid does survive, and you hope they do, then maybe there might have a chance. But then we know people die at 19 years old. They do great, right? Even with all the food mitigation and all the diets and surgeries. And then they're 19 years old. They come home after college and they don't survive a frequency shift. Well, why didn't they survive? Well, I guess now we go look and see what the parents did. See what the system did. See what kind of diagnosable conditions that kid had. But no, you don't remember, everything is HIPAA. Everything's under Privacy Act. So you'll never know unless the parents want to go and reveal what they did. But then they're too ashamed, right? When parents are 19 years, they have a 19-year-old that didn't survive a frequency shift, just died in their sleep. You really think they're going to divulge every single thing they did with that child up to 19 years old? No. They're going to go and blame somebody. That's their absolution. But the system already, got what they needed. One less person to deal with. One less person to feed. While the parent is struggling for absolution. Some of you are paving that way because you won't change. You're all about your social capital. And your kid is just a representation of you, a mouthpiece, and you don't expect to live indefinitely. You expect to pass away someday. I can bet you that 19-year-old's parents expected to pass away someday themselves. And so what do they keep doing? The remedies, the surgeries, the food mitigation. Traditionalists didn't want to stay home, stay safe. And so the kid's 19 years old, didn't have what it takes to come home. And so he died in his sleep. Yeah, that's what people are facing. But again, you can't get people to look in the future because everything's about now, today, and what they look like today. So anyone in the J world not talking about their children's illnesses or their own might actually have something intellectually evolutionary amazing. They know if they talk about dealing with pain in their friends and families, their friends and families will come down on them and exploit the living shit out of them. And so we really won't know the future, won't know until the future, way in the future, how many people understand where I'm coming from. Because if they say they understand the J world, their own friends and family will discourage them from evolving. That's why the system made sure I had really bad press, because most people will only look at the bad but will not understand both sides. And so, yeah, this is kind of a fucked situation. So then what kind of image you put out there? No matter what, you can't talk about the J world because you know how people are going to talk about that or say or deal with that. So what do? Then you put off a fake image, which then allows other people to... So everything is really private. But not everybody is doing that. Putting on a fake image so they don't have to show people that they're doing the J world and understand it. Some people are putting out a fake image or putting out a real image, right? That everything is great. They believe they should die someday. They think that everyone should die someday. And yeah, it's great that my kids are having a bunch of kids and they probably can't really afford to have that kind of kid, you know? And so that's who I'm speaking to. Are the ones that really are fucking oblivious. The ones that are not... You know who you are. You put on whatever image you need to put on. And I'm not going to go and point out who's put on a fake image and who's put on a real image and all that other shit, right? And a fake image means that you understand the J world, but you're not going to allow your friends and family to go and exploit you. I get that. That's fine. We'll see if you really understand, because I won't know. Okay. Some I know because we've talked back and forth, and we've FaceTime, and you really get it. Okay. But even then, time will only tell, right? There's no way to really know people actually get it until the future. And it's going to be a lot of people, not just one or two. But really what I'm talking about are those who are putting off the real image, and they really think they should die someday, and they don't realize that they're setting their grandchildren up to fail. They're setting their children up to fail. So it's an interesting concept that's going on. It's an interesting dynamic that's going on right now. It really is. Because I have to assume everyone's faking, or I assume everyone is not. And so I just assume everyone's fucking faking it until we'll see in the future. So I'll just keep speaking as if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and I'm going to keep telling you what the fuck you're doing. And then maybe you'll wake up, maybe you won't, maybe you already woke up, so I'm not talking to you, so just tune me out, or say, yeah, I know where she's coming from. But I'm going to reach someone that just needs to see what happens when you don't change. But we know, see, here's the thing, people who are obvious, but we know those who are intolerant, because they talk about all of their remedies and surgeries and everything else all over Facebook. They're cannabis, right? That's how you know most people are far gone or too far gone. It's really sad, right? You never hear the ones that don't talk for obvious reasons. They keep silent because they know most of their friends and family will destroy them, so they shut up, and they're smart about it. But you definitely do hear the ones that talk about their illnesses. You'll hear them asking for money for supporting the cause, the march for the cure. You'll see them blaming somebody, recommending herbs or other pharmaceutical drugs. That's how you know you're dealing with intolerance. They will try to take your money to develop another cure, to develop another disease. That's the grim state of affairs. Let me tell you, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, but when you know that's a percentage of the world is too far gone and suffering, and another percentage of the world is a chance to redirect, right? Another percentage of the world is in the process of transitioning to redirecting. That's who I'm trying to speak to. I wish my information could help everyone, believe me, but I also know most people cannot do what I'm doing or have the support system to do what I'm doing. And some people have given up, and I know that too. So I still have to speak to those who have a chance. I'm sorry if you feel you don't have a chance. I wish I could give you the peace and the life you're looking for, but I can't give it to you. You have to give it to yourself. And so now this is where I'm going to hit home for a lot. All lab-created meat food is not poison. Your symptoms are just proof how intolerant you really are and how malnourished you are and your children are. For those who are demonizing lab-created meat and milk and cheese. In this environment, people will starve their kids so they don't not have to deal with the evolution and becoming whole again. To be a parent and saving your family and retention, and family requires a strong mother and parent. Symptoms are a sign of release and retention and the pathway to becoming whole again. And most people are not equipped to deal with growth and release or evolution, becoming whole again. So starvation and treatment and staying under their influence is the only solution for most people. Okay? I feel for the children. I feel for the adults who were once children under the rule of this ideology. I will tell you, when kids act out, they are releasing the aggressive energy, and an aware parent must support that process effectively with all food, release, and rest. But what happens is the parent goes and gets that kid diagnosed and drugged, and of course, corporal punishment is used on that child. Now, more damage and scars for the future. Now you see why we're in a depopulation agenda. Okay? So if you don't have any kids, then you'll scar yourself with the herbs and the extracts and the food fears. All right? So when you get your kids diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, that kid is now compromised. Food mitigation, starvation, endless therapies, and drugs, and aggressive physical behavior modification from parents who are taught corporal punishment. I would not want to be a kid in this society. It is hell for them. And they pay for it when they become an adult with hormonal imbalances and trust issues. I mean, how can you trust anyone really? When your own parent takes away your ability to survive, forcing you under the knife and oncology or taking aggressive herbal pharma medicines all the time. How can you as a kid trust anyone as an adult when your own parents used corporal punishment on you? If you cannot handle the energy from your kid trying to release the aggressive energy and know how to feed them and such, you will either get help from a doctor to help that kid transition using the food supply and ways to keep them safe during the release process, or you will ask a doctor to drug them and take them when the symptoms are released or too aggressive. So when that kid becomes psychotic, homicidal maniac, or they become so aggressive and destructive, then they have to be taken to an insane asylum or something, the psych ward. So there are two kinds of parents. Those will be the two kinds of parents. And most parents are too weary to really take interest in themselves to survive. And so all it is just keeping everyone around them happy. That's it. That's what these parents now are just like, okay, let's just be happy. Fuck surviving. Let's just be happy, happy, happy. Completely oblivious to the outcome of their intentions. Okay? So there'll be two kinds of parents. They get help from a doctor to help their kid transition using the food supply and ways to keep them safe during the release process, or they'll ask a doctor to drug them and ask them to take them when the symptoms become too much. So if you're a parent and your kid has ADD, ADHD, or whatever issue, take my book, read it, and then go talk to your family doctor and say, okay, my kid has ADD, but they need the meat, the milk, the cheese, the eggs. Yes, they might have some kind of response or reaction, but I want you to help me get the kid to learn how to blow their nose. I want you to help me teach that kid how to blow their nose. How do we get them to go poop? How do we help them to go poop? And maybe drinking the milk, so when they're drinking milk, it'll help them go poop. But if they get some kind of protein buildup up here, then they have to learn how to blow their nose. So doctor, how can you help me make sure, or help me teach my kid, my ADD, ADHD, autistic, Down syndrome child to blow their nose? And they need to drink milk and it's okay. And if they have to poop, let them poop. See, there'll be two kinds of parents. That's why I'm saying that we need to ask the doctors to come in and reverse all the fucking curses they've ever did to us. And help the nurses get them on board. We know the holistic world's like completely out, that they're not going to get it because they're all about their herbs. Maybe they might, I don't know. I mean, I can't say the holistic world won't, but you know how the holistic world is. They're like, oh yeah, big pharma's so bad. The doctors are so bad. The holistic world's worse. And so there'll be two kinds of parents. The ones that will ask their doctor to help their kids come back to life, and the ones that will ask the doctor to drug the kids out until there's nothing left. So the outcome, most people cannot handle parenthood because they can barely take care of themselves. So why are we encouraging our doctors and our sons to have children? To have families when you, mom and dad, could barely even take care of yourself because you're under a doctor or holistic person? What kind of misery are you setting your family up for in the future? Especially when cancer, disease, and illness and sudden death is in the future for people who don't change. And so the system will drug your kid and take out their organs systematically. How many kids had their tonsils taken out? You know that your tonsils are your first lines of defense? The reason why they're all always having to deal with a sore throat is because the parent needs to give their kid more of the food so they can release the demons and blow your nose. Parents aren't going to do that. They're going to get shit sucked out of them. And then when that doesn't work and the kid has more infection, then they go and take out their organs because they don't want to deal with it. It's like, doing oncology. When you're taking out your kid's organs and going under the knife and surgeries, it's like doing oncology. And then it's like getting an abortion. You don't want to deal with the pain of retention, release. It's all connected. The micro level and the macro level are all connected. How many kids have had their tonsils taken out? It sucks to be a kid nowadays. It fucking sucks. And using holistic practitioners are no better. Your intentions are to silence evolution and drug it out and remedy it away. And then find a demon. How can a kid take any adult seriously when you as a kid are screaming out in pain from symptoms? And all the mother and the grandma can do is just smile and say, I love you, Johnny, Billy, Susie. Grammy, Mammy will take away the pain away. Using surgeries, causing more trauma, saying, hush, you demon child. You have the evil spirit in you, and it must be exorcised away. Legalistic religious folk using the power of the devil to invoke and diagnose their child under evil spirits and destroy their family through major legalistic religions. This is why I stay away from the general population, because it is insane. I feel for the children and the grandchildren under the rule of the all-loving families. I feel for them. When you think about it, parents nowadays are just guardians for government children. They have no idea what it means to be a parent because they were never taught to. They were taught to be a guardian for their kids. Okay? They have no idea what it means to be a parent. It's plainly obvious. It's all about the mother's success. It's not about making sure the kid can be resilient in this environment. And so their children become extensions of themselves or social capital to be exploited. The poor kid does not know how to deal with the future because they don't have a parent who knows how to deal with the future, because a parent expects to pass away someday. So the parent can barely even deal with today. And so, yeah. That's some pretty heavy-hitting shit. But I feel for those cells in that body when that kid goes under the knife. I feel for that child going under the knife. I know parents don't know any better, and this is what they have to do. But that's the thing. Now you are knowing better. Now you're given a different way of doing things. You have a book that says that you got to blow your nose and cough and sneeze. The doctors know about the alimentary canal. Shit, the alimentarius, Codex Alimentarius is about how to manage the life in the alimentary canal. Codex Alimentarius is the World Health Organization's way of managing the food supply so it doesn't compromise the alimentary canal based upon their intentions. And so if you want to live, learn a different way of doing shit. If you want to live and you want to give your kids a fucking chance, your grandkids that you say you love so much, that you honor, and you're exploiting them all over the place. Oh, look at my granddaughter, my grandpa, or look at my granddaughter, my grandson, how beautiful they are. And you haven't even figured out how to keep yourself alive, grandma. Again, what chance does that child have? What chance does that grandchild have? And so here's another way of looking at the world. Toss this book to your fucking doctor and say, hey, help me do this. Help me figure this shit out, doctor. You owe it to me. You have destroyed my family genetic line for fucking years. You and your whole industry. With your herbs, your extracts, your pills, your powders, your supplements, your detoxes, your oncology. And this chick is trying to bring the fucking life back to people's bodies. But it's going to take a collaboration between the family and the doctor. Because a holistic professional is not going to know how to do this. But holistic professionals only take away your pain with herbs. They're not part of this. Holistic people are not part of this. They won't have what it takes to deal with someone who has heart conditions, who has high blood pressure. A holistic professional will not be the one to manage someone's transition from death to life. Get away from the holistic professionals and go back to the fucking medical system and tell them to undo all the fucking deadly curses that they cast upon your family and your genetic line. And so study history, study Imhotep, study the Rosicrucian. And so everyone who believes they should die someday has a food allergy. When they're on low sodium diets, gluten-free diets, sugar-free diets, when they're on diabetic diets, when they're on all these different diets, they have food allergies. Now you have to transition back onto all the foods that you have ran away from. I don't care if you politicized it. But you need now the meat, the milk, the cheese, the eggs, well, not all the fruits and vegetables, but yeah, you need all the fruits and vegetables. But it doesn't mean you need to have your diet predominantly be fruits and vegetables. You need all the food, you need genetically modified, you need everything. Processed food, all of that. There is nothing poison in the food supply. If you think it's poison, it's because you are intolerant. And so everyone who believes they should die someday has a food allergy. The answer is not to stay away from the food, but to release the demons and still eat the food. Food is not poison. You are just intolerant. When you are aging out, that equals state-sanctioned progressive starvation. Go look at the nursing homes. Go look at all the old people's homes. Even though they're giving food, their body is not able to process it because they have not been able to release the demons. If they feel something, they're taking a pill. And so what sucks is once your body gets on that immunological response train, you start feeling aggressive symptoms. You'll go in one of two directions. One, get over the food allergies and feed the demons and release them, outlined in my book. Or two, you will treat yourself out of existence, causing you more trauma. You only have two choices. Please choose wisely. I didn't start this. It's not my fault. I'm just trying to save myself. And so if you are dealing with so many different diseases and your doctor gave you so many pills, now it's time for you to confront them. Don't go to your holistic professional. Don't go to your local tincturist, your herbal remedyist. Go to your fucking doctor and tell them to help you transition back onto life. Put the ball back in the court where it belongs. It belongs right back in the medical system. They developed all of your issues with all the remedies, the surgeries, the tinctures, everything. And then when you got so tired of the medical system, then you went and found somebody in the holistic world and you're under the influence or taking all their stupid tinctures. And so that's why I said the physicians are the ones that are going to be able to reverse the curses, to reverse the spells. We've come full circle, J-World, and we are the force majeure. But we're in climate change, we're in a new world order. It's not the same world anymore, but you know how slow evolution is. And so again, those of you who are dealing with conditions and dealing with things, now it's up to you to stand up for yourself. If you can't stand up for yourself and take my book, whether it's electronically, which, $5 is nothing to anyone. You can ask your doctor to go, or you give them my book. If you can't stand up for yourself, then you deserve whatever you get. I'm going to be quite serious. If you cannot stand up for yourself, those that are dealing with conditions, then there is nothing to be an activist against. If you can't stand up for yourself, your activism in politics, religion, and science dogmas is full of shit. Full of shit. It doesn't mean shit. Because I'm telling you, the food is the answer, and getting over all the food allergies and intolerances is the answer. Because you need food to eat. And if you can't do that, you're not willing to do that because you have too much social capital from all of your activism, then you're part of the problem. You're part of the depopulation agenda. Thanks for your service. Bye.